Our fourth significant subcortical supratentorial structure, the limbic system. For the most part, this is deep to the basal ganglia, but actually, parts are inferior and superior, and it's kind of spread out a little bit more. Kind of remind me of Cerebra from X-Men. The hippocampus and fornix kind of looks like a seahorse, and we can see this here, but let's go ahead and look at my dumb little animation. So we're highlighting on the fornix right now, and then we're going to go to the hippocampus. So now we're in the hippocampus connected to the amygdala, and then a little bit more medially, we have the mammillary body. And then the cingulate gyrus arguably is part of it as well. So we can see this again, the mammillary body is peeking up right above the pons right there. Here we have the amygdala connected to the hippocampus. It's good for the 5 Fs, fucking, fearing, fleeing, fighting, feeling, and forgetting, so arguably 6. And the fornix is a relay station, which may or may not mean that we just don't really know what it does, or maybe I just don't know what it does, but relay station. Let's just keep it simple. Hippocampus, really important for taking short-term memories and converting them to long-term memories, especially like spatial memories. So if you think of like a mouse trying to get through a maze, and it's been at it for like weeks and weeks and weeks, and it's just getting better at memorizing like parts of the maze, or if you go to a new city and you get used to like walking around, that's spatial memory. Very sensitive damage. Hippocampus and cerebellum. You think of a hippo playing with a bell. So hippo with bell, very sensitive to ischemia and whatnot. The amygdala is to do with like fearful or threatening stimuli. The mammillary body is going to play a role in the formation and the processing of memory. So it's going to be important for anterograde and retrograde memories. Forming new memories, pulling old memories. The cingulate gyrus, kind of vague, but it processes emotions, whatever. It's also important for a pain response. We have this silly Venn diagram picture here just to show that there's a lot of overlap between a lot of what these things do. And again, so there's very fuzzy borders, and it's not as tight-knit as something like the basal ganglia. But you need a lot of these working together, though, to have like a functioning memory and emotional system. Also, the olfactory bulb here. This is the only cranial nerve. We have 12 cranial nerves. 1 and 2 technically don't go to the brainstem, but this is cranial nerve 1. It's the only one that doesn't go to the thalamus. Instead, it goes kind of like right to the limbic system. And so some people argue that that's why this is going to smell is particularly important for memory. Oliver Sacks, he writes, I think it's like the first or second chapter. He talks about a man who has Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. So Wernicke is going to be like the ataxia and the eye issues, and then Korsakoff is going to be for the retrograde and anterograde amnesia, both of them. And I think of people being off their rocker because there's going to be a lot of confabulation. If your brain can't remember things, your brain actually still strives for a cohesive. So it'll just kind of make up stuff to kind of fill in the gap. So it's going to be a lot of nonsense. Alcoholics have B1 deficiency. There's inflammation of their intestines. They can't absorb B1 as well, and they probably don't have the best diet, so not enough B1. Somehow that affects the thiamine disproportionately, and so they get the amnesia. But the guy in this book, for whatever reason, he can remember things like before 1945, and so he thinks he's a young man in the Navy, and it's like a really sad moment where Oliver Sacks like shows him a mirror, and he freaks out because he realizes how old he is. And I think some of this was the inspiration for 50 First Dates.